Welcome back, students, to our discussions on another new chapter in chemistry in the syllabus of class 9. From today, we will introduce the topic of atoms and molecules, and today will be the first part in our discussions. Today, we will study about the laws of chemical combination. But prior to that, we should know how people came to know about the internal structure of any form of matter. In our previous discussions that we had in the chapters of chemistry, we have studied about matter and the different states of matter. We have studied in detail about their properties and also how, if you are having a mixture, then we can utilize different separation techniques for separating out the components. But now let us go into the microscopic level. Let us try and visualize what matter is actually made up of. Now, a very important question might arise in your mind that who was the first person who suggested or rather thought about the building block of any form of matter? Ancient Indian and Greek philosophers have always wondered about the unknown and unseen form of matter. The idea of divisibility of matter was considered long back in India around 500 BC. An Indian philosopher, Maharshi Kannad, postulated that if we go on dividing matter, that is Padarth, we shall get smaller and smaller particles. Ultimately, a stage will come when we shall come across the smallest particles beyond which further division will not be possible. He named these particles Parmanu. Another Indian philosopher, Pakuda Katyayana, elaborated this doctrine and said that these particles normally exist in a combined form which gives us various forms of matter. Around the same era, ancient Greek philosophers Democritus and Leucippus suggested that if we go on dividing matter, a stage will come when particles obtained cannot be divided further. Democritus called these indivisible particles atoms, meaning indivisible. All this was based on philosophical consideration, and not much experimental work to validate these ideas could be done till the 18th century. According to Leucippus and Democritus' atomic model, matter is physically made up of atoms. They are always moving, they are invisible, they are homogeneous and solid. They are indivisible and cannot be created or destroyed or changed. They differ in size, shape, weight, position, and arrangement. There are spaces between atoms. The more empty space, the heavier the atom is. For example, oil is made up of smooth solid atoms that can easily pass each other. Liquid has large round atoms, and solids are made with pointy small solid atoms. These ideas were at that point not taken much into consideration because, as I told you earlier, that not much experimental work to validate these ideas could be done till the 18th century. By the end of the 18th century, scientists recognized the difference between elements and compounds and naturally became interested in finding out how and why elements combine and what happens when they combine. In fact, Antoine L. Lavoisier laid the foundation of chemical sciences by establishing two important laws of chemical combination. Laws of chemical combination. As you can see, there are the different laws of chemical combination: law of conservation of mass, law of multiple proportion, law of constant composition or definite proportion, and law of reciprocal proportion. The first two, that is law of conservation of mass and law of constant composition, have been included in the syllabus for class 9, and we shall be discussing about these two in today's session. Law of conservation of mass and law of constant proportion were established after much experimentations by Lavoisier and Joseph L. Proust. Law of conservation of mass. Mass is neither created nor destroyed in ordinary chemical and physical changes. During any form of change, it must start and end with the same amount. For example, a very elementary example, log 30 kg fire, if it is equivalent to 1 kg, then ashes will be left for 28 kg and smoke will be of 3 kg. So exactly on one side you are having 30 plus 1 equal to 31 kg, on the other side you are having 28 plus 3 equal to 31 kg. This means in a chemical reaction, the mass of the reactants is equal to the mass of the products. Like we are trying to solve a question, how many grams of oxygen react with 40 gram of calcium oxide to produce 100 gram of calcium oxide? So you find calcium is 40 gram, it should be 40 gram of calcium, and we are about to figure out the amount of oxygen. Then calcium oxide turns out to be 100 grams. Obviously it should be 100 minus 40, that is mass of oxygen is 100 minus 40 gram, that is 60 gram. To have a better understanding, let us discuss an activity. Consider the setup that has been shown. Now in the setup you can see that it is written X and Y. For X and Y, we can consider any one of the following sets. Like for example, for X we can take copper sulfate, and for Y we can take sodium carbonate. If copper sulfate is 1.25 gram and sodium carbonate 1.43 gram. So either we consider this particular set, or we can consider lead nitrate, (2.07 gram), or sodium chloride NaCl 1.17 gram. Now we have to prepare separately a 5% solution of any one pair of these substances, each in 10 milliliter in water. Take a little amount of solution of Y in a conical flask and some solution of X in an ignition tube, as you can see in the picture. Hang the ignition tube in the flask carefully. As you can see in the picture, the ignition tube has been hung with the help of the thread. See that the solutions do not get mixed. Put a cork on the flask. Weigh the flask with its contents carefully. Now tilt and swirl the flask so that the solutions X and Y get mixed. We need to weigh again. What happens in the reaction flask? We will find that a chemical reaction has took place. Now an important question arises, why should we put a cork on the mouth of the flask? This is to ensure that if suppose during the chemical reaction any gaseous product is released, that should not be able to come out of the container, it is entrapped. So when we are weighing the flask, we are also considering the weight of every single product, mass of every single product. None of these have been allowed to escape. So an important question arises, does the mass of the flask and its contents change? No. You will find that before the reaction and after the reaction, the mass remains exactly the same. This is in accordance with the law of conservation of mass. This is what exactly I was discussing. That if you weigh the reactants, like in the first case we are having calcium chloride and sodium sulfate, which leads to the product calcium sulfate and sodium chloride, the reactants were having a mass of 184.34 gram. The products are also having a mass of 184.34 gram. Just see how it is being weighed on that machine. Regardless of how substances within the closed system are changed, the total mass remains the same. Similarly, in the second case, we are considering barium chloride and copper sulfate. So that barium sulfate is precipitated in sodium chloride solution. Initial mass is 300.23 gram. Final mass is also 300.23 gram. So in this way, with the help of some simple activity, we can prove the law of conservation of mass. Law of conservation of mass states that mass can neither be created nor destroyed in a chemical reaction. Let's come to the second law, law of constant proportions. Lavoisier, along with other scientists, noted that many compounds were composed of two or more elements, and each such compound had the same elements in the same proportions, irrespective of where the compound came from or who prepared it. In a compound such as water, the ratio of the mass of hydrogen to the mass of oxygen is always 1:8, whatever the source of water. Thus, if 9 gram of water is decomposed, 1 gram of hydrogen and 8 gram of oxygen are always obtained. Similarly, in ammonia, nitrogen and hydrogen are always present in the ratio 14:3 by mass, whatever the method or the source from which it is obtained. This led to the law of constant proportions, which is also known as the law of definite proportions. This law was stated by Joseph Proust. In a chemical substance, the elements are always present in definite proportions by mass. Once these laws were given, the next problem faced by the scientists was to give appropriate explanations of these laws. British chemist John Dalton provided the basic theory about the nature of matter. Dalton picked up the idea of a divisibility of matter, which was till then just a philosophy. He took the name atoms as given by the Greeks and said that the smallest particles of matter are atoms. His theory was based on the laws of chemical combination. Dalton's atomic theory provided an explanation for the law of conservation of mass and the law of definite proportions. In our next class, we shall be having a detailed discussion on Dalton's atomic theory and also about what is an atom and how it can be symbolized. Thank you.